Well, I'm Dr. Ruth Shear, and I'm Australian, and I've been teaching at UT since 1996, so 20 years. I teach UGS signature course, UGS 303 Scientific Inquiry, which is the entry course to the FRI. The first job I aspired to when I was 4 was garbage collector, because the guys who collected the garbage were really nice to me. So I wanted to be. Well, my kids, they're not really a hobby. What do I do when I'm not working, when sleeping and eat? So I like to cook and eat. I really, because cooking's chemistry. But when I was at university and I wasn't playing the piano all the time, my new relaxation was cooking, learning to cook. I lived in an apartment with a group of friends, and we all took turns cooking for each other. I learned piano from when I was really little, but when I did, school band sort of things, I learned the clarinet first. I counted once. I learned 19 instruments. I'd probably say my kids, although they haven't been around less than half of my life, but I feel like being a parent is so amazing. But then I had a couple of high school teachers in particular. In grade 9, I had Mr. Kamak was a Canadian exchange teacher, and he set up a science club at lunchtime for those of us who seemed bored with science because it was all too easy. And so he brought sourdough starter, which we'd never heard of, and so we made sourdough pancakes. He brought solid fuel rockets illegally into the country. We shot them off in the back oval. He got us access to the senior biology lab, and we made soap out of beef fat, stunk out the whole building. That was great. So doing these slightly naughty science things was, I'd say that was the thing that pushed me into taking all the science I could. At the end of senior, when you have to apply to university, or during senior when you apply to university, my family thought I was going to be a music major. I decided at the very last minute to be a scientist. You can always do music as a hobby, that's what I told myself, but you can't really do science as a hobby so much. Well, I went on, when I was in high school, my last summer, I went on to a summer school at a smaller university. There are a couple of big universities in the capital city of my home state. And there was a small new university, and they had a I forget, some seasonal science week where seniors who were thinking about going into science would come for a week and get shown around and have classes and all that sort of thing. And I got really hooked by that. And one of the professors who ran that camp, the week I arrived at his university as a freshman, he sent me an email. Was it an email? Might not have been email at that point. I'm so old. But he communicated with me and said, would I like to join his lab as a freshman? And I was going, yes. And so he has the huge influence on me of, going into research and I did my PhD with him. I'd actually been to America once. I came to MIT as an exchange student for 6 months, for one semester, while I was a graduate student. And then when I finished my PhD, I came back this time to Stanford, and I did 3.5 years at Stanford as a postdoc, and then I went to Cornell for a couple of years again as a postdoc research scientist, and then my first real job was here at UT. Well, I was the president of the Griffith University Music Society, or GUMS, and so I was very involved in music stuff there. It was really interesting that, you just scratch a scientist, and underneath there's, a whole pile of, it was the right brain, left brain thing. So every physics graduate, I was a physics graduate student, not a chemistry graduate student, and every physics graduate student was in the music society. They all played instruments in high school. And when I went to my undergraduate degree, it was a new university that was sort of radical. Instead of saying you majored in chemistry or physics or whatever, everybody as freshmen who chose science did all the sciences. So in my freshman year, I did a little bit of everything. So yes, I got my first ever biology. We did developmental biology, we did cell biology. There were a few things I remember. So the first time I had to actually teach my own class was when I came here to UT. Okay. So I've been teaching for 20 years. And when I first came, I took over the physical chemistry labs, and I was warned that they were in a terrible state of, everyone hated it. It was really old and had to be renovated, and chemistry, biochemistry, and chemical engineers had to take the class. This lab had to be fixed, and so that's what I came here to. So I fixed physical chemistry lab, and then I fixed analytical chemistry lab. And I taught those labs for 10 years, and then I co-wrote the proposal that became FRI, and everything changed, and so then I started teaching FRI classes. I know that that my strengths in teaching are that I'm enthusiastic and motivating, and that I care about people learning, and I want to see them, the light bulb turn on, and that if someone isn't getting it, you don't just yell it louder at them. You find out a way to teach it in context that they'll understand it. So I think teaching needs to be enjoyable. I think people learn it with different styles, so I have to have a range of different ways of teaching so that everyone has a chance of getting it. I like to make my classes interesting with cartoons and movies and ways to apply. I don't believe in just teaching, the set piece of material that has to be taught. It needs to be put into a context, so people need to see why this matters. How does it fit into their bigger world order, their worldview, and how can what happens in the classroom be taken outside the classroom, and either to understand how the world works if I'm teaching freshman chemistry, or to influence how the world works if I'm teaching scientific inquiry. I do think that getting freshmen excited about science, you've come here, you've chosen to do a science career, so something about it excited you, and maybe it was just because you want to be a doctor, or maybe it was because you had a cool science teacher, but I want to fan those flames and keep you excited about it, so that you don't get lost in these huge classes and you're wondering, what am I doing here, when there's more people in your classroom than your hometown. Yeah. Make it interesting, make it applicable. So in particular, I'm interested in molecular gastronomy, which is using science to inform cooking. So a lot of the new cooking shows have people cooking with liquid nitrogen and mixing these powders in to make fancy stuff. So that just sort of grabbed me one day. I heard about it, and I've had lessons in it now. I've actually gave a kitchen chemistry lecture once. So it would mostly be chemistry, but there'd be some biochemistry and physics too. What I want to do is teach food chemistry to a science major, like make it a senior elective. And so knowing what you know about chemistry and biochemistry, can you understand how cooking works and how you can then manipulate that to cook better things? So, science and math was put in the curriculum originally to teach logic, to teach logical thinking, how to see these things and put them together and tell a story. But nowadays, science is understanding how the world works, and this world isn't going to make it if we don't understand how it works and try and do some things to fix the way we run it at the moment. So one of the things that's really important for kids to understand is to take stewardship of the environment and stop destroying it the way that we have been doing. Kids are born curious. As soon as they start talking, they're going to be saying why, and how, and that's a scientific mind. So it seems to me the most obvious thing to teach kids is science. And so when they ask questions, you don't have to give them these great big long scholarly answers. You answer what they ask and then follow up and tell them more. So yeah, I definitely have been talking as a scientist to my kids as soon as they could hear me. And I'm not, they don't have to. Yeah, that's why I get you to read the Feynman book. Yeah. It's like, keep asking why forever, and not just concentrate on this one little thing, but anything that grabs your fancy that you ask why, go figure it out. Measure it, read about it. Well, part of it was because I got into research as a freshman, so I know it's totally doable, and it made me love doing research from the very beginning. Originally, the reason that NSF the National Science Foundation was asking for proposals in this field. I mean, the reason we wrote the proposal was because there's a very poor retention rate in the sciences in this country, that most people who start in a science degree do not end up with us. Most people who enter as a freshman in science don't end up graduating in science. And so NSF did say you want to involve more people in research at the beginning, and that really grabbed the interest of a few of us who are really interested in undergraduate research. I was a big booster for undergraduate research for years before FRI, because I had chemistry majors 4 times in 2 PChem labs and 2 analytical labs, and biochemists twice in 1 physical and 1 analytical lab before they graduated. So I knew every single major in this department well. And so they knew me, and I was the one that would come and ask questions about careers and, you know, what should they do? And I was always saying, you should do some research. So I used to be the person that the juniors and seniors would come to try to get advice about how to get into research labs, which is why I was asked to, you know, ask would I be interested in helping writing this proposal. Research is the most fun part of science. There's, you know, so much of it seems like drudgery, you know, memorizing stuff and doing homework and writing equations and stuff, and all that's well and good, and there's all sorts of cool things there, but seeing it applied makes it come alive. Come to UT as a freshman wanting to be a scientist, and I saw many of them who just got dragged down in all before there was this option. I mean, people would always do research as freshmen, but most people didn't know. They didn't know it was an option. They didn't know how to get into it. They didn't know why it would be good for them. And then a lot of professors didn't think freshmen would know enough to do it. So it was a possibility, but only the people who really put themselves forward and educated themselves on the topics would have done it. So I wanted to widen the access to it for everybody, not just the few who knew it was a good thing to do. I've seen students come out with papers and just be astonished that they have an actual paper or 2 or 3. Seeing results, seeing students stand up at conferences and present their work confidently, seeing them go out and become, you know, amazing scientists. You know, I really like to see where you all go and what you do, and so I have all these students who are out doing science, doing medicine, having kids. It's just, you know, it's great. Yeah, so I believe that part of the core curriculum is everyone has to do some science, right? So that's harking back to what I was originally talking about, is that I don't think everyone has to be a scientist, but I really think it's important for people to have an understanding of the scientific process, and to understand, not just because at the moment people have bad opinions of scientists in this country, but because if people understand that, you know, you have these facts and you put them together and you make a deduction, when people have opinions, too often I find that they have that opinion because that's what they hear all their friends say, or it's what their parents have told them. But if you say, what facts do you have to back up this opinion, they don't necessarily think about that. And so I have no problem with someone having opinions when they are based on evidence. It's fun. It's real science. You can discover things no one else has done before. The thrill of answering the questions, the whole why that you have as a kid, too often that's stifled, and I want it to come back out. That's why I get you to read the Feynman book. Yeah. It's like, keep asking why forever, and not just concentrate on this one little thing, but anything that grabs your fancy that you ask why, go figure it out, measure it, read about it. Yeah. I think one of the things that you don't realize is that a lot of it is boring and a lot of it is frustrating, and I think a lot of you have learned that this semester. I always wish more people at the end would have some success, so that they realize all the frustration and patience and, you know, hair pulling out and failure leads to success, but it doesn't always. So it does teach people that, you know, it's not a quick payoff. You have to be in it for the long haul. I just wish that I could help more inquiries work, so more people got a payoff at the end. I think that the inquiry for the research proposal writing is really hard, and you all hate me because you're having to work so hard, and you've got all these exams to think about, and it's the end of the semester. But later, when looking back on it, it's such a great experience, and just seeing you all stand up there and have the words coming out of your mouths, like you're all experts in this new topic, and I'm so proud when I hear you all do it. I did my PhD research in the same lab that I did my undergraduate research in, and it was the field of chemical physics, and I was studying reaction dynamics. So when you have a beaker of A plus a beaker of B, pour them together and it makes AB, well, that's chemistry, that's chemical equations. When you have molecule A meets molecule B and you put them together to make AB, the way that happens on statistical average is what we write out in a chemical reaction, but every single A plus B does not always do exactly the same thing when you put them together. Average it over moles, over 10 to the 23 molecules, yes. But what I was studying was at the molecular level, what happens in reactions. So I had great big stainless steel boxes that were built, pumped out to be under extreme vacuum, so there's nothing in there. And then you shine beams of molecules in there, shine some lasers in there, put some detectors in there, make the molecules hit each other, and at each intersection, what happens? So, yeah. So it's the physics of a chemical reaction, so chemical physics. I'm here teaching in the chemistry department, but I was a physicist, although I've been teaching chemistry for so long. But I did, let me think about this for a second. So I feel like I know a lot of biology by being around, all you guys experiments who do this, and also I've been involved with some students at higher level research. I run the Beckman Scholar Program, so that's a couple of really good undergraduates each year get this scholarship and they do high level research, and I've mentored 26 of them or something. So when they're biologists, I learned about their biology. One year the Aptima lab gave us a cloning experiment, and I got all excited and I said, I want to do it too. And so I did some molecular biology and I cloned some little bacteria and then did electrophoresis, did PCR, did all that stuff. I felt like I know what all this stuff is, I just want to do it. So that was fun. But no, I haven't done any research into biology other than making 2 children. The ultimate research. Just wanting to know more, just I love being in the lab. You really, in Australia, a lot fewer people do graduate school because you don't earn very much money. Your friends who went through undergraduate with you, they're all out being doctors and lawyers and settling down and having family, and we're still living on a couch and eating rice and beans. So the only reason to go to grad school is because you really love it. You just want to be in the lab all the time, and so I actually miss that. I don't feel like I have a research career anymore. If anything, I'm researching how undergraduate research helps students succeed. So that's a different sort of research, more chemical education research. But I miss being in a lab. That's really fun. If you entered into the spirit of science where everyone's collaborating and sharing their stuff with each other, and I think a lot of scientists are built to have a little bit of a competitive edge. So read the reviews, figure out what has to be done, and write it again. I just had one. I just had a proposal rejected recently. So yeah, it's like, this is the Beckman scholarship that I have won every 3 years since 1999. It's the first time that I did not get one. And so it's like, what did I do? And we don't get reviews back. That particular program, they don't tell you why you didn't get it. You just have to go back in again next year. So it's going to be pulling the proposal apart from top to toe and see what, I've become complacent. I'm used to winning it. I have to see what I can do to change it. I would keep better notes in my lab notebook. I still suck at that. It's a skill that I wish I learned well. I also would try and be a better time manager. I still suck at that, which is one of the reasons I do what I do in my class, to try and shock people into, oh my God, I'm never going to do that again, leave everything to the last minute. So in Australia, there's not as much money for research, and most of the fancy equipment like lasers and stuff comes from America. So when something breaks down, you have to wait until the next service visit, which might be 6 months away, or you have to learn to fix it yourself. And you can't afford all the spare parts, so you put it together from your rubber bands and string type thing. And so there's the word kludge, which I believe Americans don't use, but you kludge something together, you put things together that you wouldn't normally put together in that way. So I offered people who worked in the sort of work I did with lasers and building big tanks, lots of electronics, lots of water and gas lines and everything. I could be a plumber, I could be an electrician, I can fix my own car, I can build my own laser. You get a whole pile of handyman skills and knowing how to put things to, make something work when you don't have exactly what you need, figure out what you can do with the materials you have. So I could probably survive on a desert island. So I work with high school students in the summer. So I have this summer research camp. We've been doing it for maybe 5 years now. So that we're getting people even earlier on. Part of it is to attract them to come to UT and join the FRI program. But part of it is, kids who are keen on science normally had to go away to MD Anderson or something if they knew that they could do something in the summer. A lot of them don't even know that this is available. And so we actually go to some of the high schools in the poorer parts of town and really encourage. We have scholarships for them to come and to try and encourage people to see how cool science is and consider science degrees, because the automatic thing that all parents think is if your kid's really smart they should be a doctor, and yeah, we need doctors, but we need scientists too, and so the more people we can suck in, the better. So whenever I have chances, I'm in a big women's group called the Austin Mamas, or a Yahoo internet group with about 600 or 800 women in it. And so when my kids were younger, I was very involved supporting mothers with the science side of things. When they couldn't understand stuff about medical conditions or stuff, then I'd be there to explain it. And a couple of mothers have gone back to school, and so I help them with it. I was just helping someone online with their studying for a chemistry exam. She's almost my age. So. The FRI program, that's the most amazing thing, to something that we've just sort of thought up sitting around on a sofa saying, what could we do? And saying, oh, why don't we do this? And we'll call them research educators. And so astonishing that it has worked so well. I actually had cause to consider moving elsewhere, and I said, not while FRI is running, I'll stay here. Well, it's kept me here in Austin, hasn't it? It changed me from teaching seniors to freshmen. I always said, when I fixed the PChem lab and the analytical lab, Dave Lowry said to me, do you want to fix freshman lab? And I said, no, I like teaching seniors. They like their science, they're on their way out, they're more advanced. I think I want to stick with seniors. And then this the FRI thing came along, and I started teaching freshmen. I'm going, oh, I was an idiot. You're so much more influenceable as freshmen. You haven't made your mind up about what you want to do. You're still excited about doing science. Especially in first semester, university is different. And so anything I throw at you, you just say, oh, okay, that's really different. It's taught me to love teaching freshmen, that's for sure.